Yeah, hello everyone, and welcome back to Godsall's Turnbuckle. And this time around, we are going to be doing more positives and negatives, but this time it is going to be for WWE PLEs because we recently did do a video where we went over the positives and negatives of AEW pay-per-views. Again, this is going to be all based upon my own personal opinion and how I view watching these shows when I do watch them. To go along with that, feel free to leave your own positives and negatives towards WWE PLEs, much like with AEW pay-per-views, down in the comments below if you so wish. So let's go ahead and get right into it. And a positive side here, this is something I do personally think, it's much like with the AEW pay-per-views, is that usually the match quality is a bit high. Obviously, you are going to maybe get a few matches that aren't so good here and there inside of the shows, but generally they are going to be a much a much better product than what you would maybe see on weekly television. That's just how I personally feel on it. And I do feel like there's probably a pretty good number of matches that you've seen on there that end up being pretty good as well. So I do feel like the match quality is usually high, and usually also storytelling within those matches are quite high as well, much like with AEW pay-per-views, what I may mention in the previous video. Also, one thing I personally do like about WWE PLEs is that they are usually within that 3 to 3.5 hour range. I feel like that is the sweet spot for more premiere shows or anything in that sense. Obviously, with exceptions to the rules, such as maybe a Royal Rumble where you're going to get 2 1 hour matches to begin with, or also maybe even the WrestleMania shows, because they are 2 nights. Maybe they can make an exception on those, or Survivor Series, basically the major pay-per-views. It kind of makes sense maybe to go over that 4 hour mark, much like with AEW as well. But generally, outside of those particular shows, they are going to keep it within that 3 to 3.5 hour range. And honestly, it does make it to be an easier watch. And also, another positive, honestly, this is like my last positive note for WWE PLEs, is that the crowds, they're usually extremely hot for the entire show. They're usually into most, if not all, the matches in some way, shape, or form. And obviously, we did see that with a bunch of overseas shows recently when you had, the time in France, Bash in Berlin, you saw crowds being extremely hot, but that does also go for shows that have been here in the US as well. Usually, like I said, crowds are into pretty much every match that are about to happen on the show. Now that we have gone over the positive points, we do have to go through the negative points, and I do think there are a few negative points to go along with this as well. Honestly, typically a WWE PLE has 5 matches on it now, with the exception of maybe WrestleMania or SummerSlam, something in that sense. They do keep the match totals probably a little bit less for Royal Rumble and Survivor Series, because usually you have like War Games, that's a long match, and then you have Royal Rumble matches that are long matches as well. And so it kind of makes sense that they would have fewer matches there, but a lot of these other shows, they're only going to get 5 matches on them. And I'm not sure if that's necessarily how Triple H would prefer everything in that sense. That is basically his old NXT takeover philosophy, was 5 matches as well. So it's gonna also tie into another point there. Once I get with one other thing, I may mention to this in the AEW pay-per-view video, is that I feel like the sweet spot is that in between to 6 to 8 match range. So usually 7 is the best, what I feel is like the best, but again, that's my own personal opinion on it. But also, with the factor of there being so few matches on these shows, when there are mess ups in the matches, they can be a little bit more magnified because the crowd isn't seeing other matches to maybe cover up a mistake or something in this sense, or maybe even a match that wasn't that good to begin with. And it can actually magnify particular mess ups within the show itself because there aren't a lot of matches happening on the show. Another negative point here with AEW, I felt like they had a very short downtime between matches. You had a match, maybe you had a quick break or a video where you could go get a drink or something like that. To be honest with you, there is a long break in between each match. And I'm not sure if that's something to do with the whole area of Peacock or Netflix. Now for international people will be watching the show and their ads or anything to go along with that, why we have long breaks, I'm not 100% certain on it, but you do have an extremely long break, somewhere between maybe 5 to 10 minutes between each match. And I'm not even talking about the aspect of match ends and then entrances begin. I mean, match ends, ad time, video package, then the entrances, if they're not doing a backstage segment or something like that to go along with it. So honestly, there's a lot of downtime, and I don't necessarily know how it comes off in the crowd when you're in that crowd itself in between each match, but I do feel like watching it at home, there is a lot of downtime in between matches. And this actually brings me to the last negative that I had. One of the big positives I had over on AEW's side for pay-per-views is that you had a lot of different options. You weren't tied to something in general, you weren't kind of like forced to go to one place to get the pay-per-view. You could get it on YouTube. You could get it on Max. You could get it on payperview.com or Fight TV. I think it's called Triller now. You had options to be able to go to view the AEW pay-per-views. On WWE side, I'm going to be fair on this. They don't have a lot of options. If you're talking in the US, if you want to watch the pay-per-view, you have one option, and that's to have a Peacock account. Whether they may, I would have to double check with this on my end, and maybe I do that in post, so you may see it below. They may have a free tier that is, inundated with ads and everything like that for Peacock, but in a sense, you still do need to have at least signed up, if not have a subscription to Peacock itself to watch it in the US. Now, you can VPN to get out of the US or anything like that, but guess what? As of the new deal, there's only one option for you to go to, and that's Netflix. So Netflix is the international one that's going to be holding the PLEs. They don't necessarily have pay-per-view sites that you can go to anymore to get WWE PLEs in any way, shape, or form. So you're very limited, and you're tied probably to a subscription base as well to say that if you want to watch these to begin with. Now, WWE has been that way for quite some time, because when they did bring in the WWE Network, that was pretty much the main way of going. Though for a long period of time after the network was made, you could still order pay-per-views on their own. They would just be at like that $50 range or something in that sense, where you order it one time, or you could have the WWE Network and have it for the subscription in each month to go along with it. But I think when they moved over to the Peacock, they took that completely away in the US. But I think it was still being held that way internationally until the Netflix deal. So, like I said, there's just not a lot of options of where you can view these things. You're pretty much tied to either Peacock or Netflix. So that was the last negative I had on this. Again, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, feel free to give your own positives and negatives to WWE PLEs down in the comments below. If you liked everything, feel free to like the video, subscribe if you so wish. And with that being said, I hope you all take care, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a great rest of your day.